Hello everyone. Today we are going to be doing something a bit different. We're not actually going to be building a workflow today. We're going to be talking about how to create more cinematic type movements with cameras, or the artificial camera, I guess you could say, within Wan 2.1 image to video. And we're going to be using this image right here, which is part of a series I'm trying to work on that I will be releasing at some point. Really, the purpose of this is just to not necessarily get a graphic cinematic look, because that's going to deal with more or less the level of resolution that you have, but to get more control over the scene as if it was like cinema, and that takes understanding how to make the camera move in a certain way. So this particular workflow is basically the workflow from the Wan 2.1 image to video that's already on this channel. These things up top, these nodes up top, are the only thing that's actually different. And one of them, the one in the middle here, the Wan TeaCache, really isn't specifically about anything related to the visuals. This is related to speed and utilizing memory cache, whatever you can kind of talk about. I talked about this, I think I talked about this on the Patreon, not on here. And oh, by the way, yeah, the workflows for these things can be found on Patreon for free. Any YouTube video that I make where I'm talking about a workflow or I've created a workflow can be found on my Patreon for free. Link will be in the description. But this particular one is specifically about speed, and you can see if you highlight over here. I can't move the cursor right now to really show you exactly, but if you look down at the bottom of this pop-up window here, you'll see where it shows you the parameters you should be using. Those numbers down there are talking about threshold, and you see on the models it says which one's for text to video, 1.3b parameter, 14b. Those are also the coefficients part here. And though I am using the image to video 14b 480p, I am not using that image to video 480p coefficient. I'm using the 14b one, and I've talked about that, I know, on Patreon. And I just use it for one, I just seem like I get like a lot of the results I like better, and it's a little bit faster than using the image to video 480p one. So I just use it just because of that. But technically, it is 14 billion parameters. Anyways, let's get to what we're gonna really talk about, is these other ones. They are kind of related. This CFGZeroStar. This one is a type of node that, well, we talk about the K sampler, right? The CFG in there. This is not specifically designed for video models, and because of that, it doesn't have the same thing in mind as stuff like morphing and problems like that. The CFGZeroStar basically tries to take into account for those types of scenarios. There's no parameters associated with it. You just kind of link this node in, and if I'm not mistaken, yes, this is Comfy Core, so it's another native node. As you can see, this one is a CFGZeroStar node. The KJ nodes are all CFGZeroStar nodes, and this other one over here is called Skip Layer Guidance. This one is also CFGZeroStar node, and it helps with the coherence. While this one's kind of makes it adhere to your prompt a little bit better, and also with those problems with, I think they both might benefit in the problems with morphing. Explaining this might be a little bit difficult because it's like this unconditional layer thing that gets removed, specifically the 10th block. Usually what it is people remove the 9th or the 10th block, or I see sometimes people do this, 9 and 10, right? And you can take this up to 100%. I've seen people do it many different ways. I'm going to leave this at 10. Basically, this whole tutorial, this is going to be more or less all like alchemy, in the sense that it's based upon trial and error, whether it's a lot of other people's uses of trial and error and talking about how they've gotten their results, and more specifically the prompting part, which is what we're going to go over, is my trial and error dealing with how to control the camera work in image to video via Wan 2.1. So in that sense, it's more or less showing you consistently what has seemed to work for me versus what doesn't really work. And maybe sometimes it's worked, but like there's no consistent situation where it seems to work all the time. And I'm going to do a bunch of iterations to try to illustrate that. So let's just get to that part. Let's talk about how we can make this prompt work. If you look at these characters, we want to move the camera around them in multiple ways. So let's just go with the simple one. The push-in method is usually what people say. Zoom doesn't necessarily work, but There's right ways of doing it, and then there's wrong ways of doing it. The camera zooms into a close-up. I don't know if I'm actually too far away. Let me zoom in, right? The camera zooms. Oh, not zooms. So yeah, see, I'm using the wrong terms already. You know what? Let's just test it out, just because I wrote it there. The camera zooms into a close-up of the man with gray hair. He is typing beside a short redhead woman at a console. Let's keep it nice and simple, right? And I want to make a point about the setting. They are inside a starship interior. So I'm not going to go into elaborate details about what they're dressed like and all this kind of stuff like that. So let's just go with that. Now in this specific movement, it doesn't seem like a movement inward. It's just kind of like dancing around. It actually kind of feels like it pulls out slightly. This is why I don't think zoom has a specific consistency. But let's use a different terminology. Instead of using the word zoom, the camera pushes into a close-up of the figure with gray hair. He is typing beside a short redhead. Oh, it should be a redhead woman with short hair. That's what it should be. Redhead woman with short hair. Otherwise, it probably thinks I'm talking about our height. So let's do it with that. Instead of using zoom, pushes in. And this is really a real cinematic term, pushing in. That's what you do with the camera versus zooming in is what you do with the lens. So as you can see in this one, the camera pushes in on the character. Very slowly, ever so slightly. We only have a few seconds to do it. I try to make it the first action because it's the most important action that needs to take place. And to try to show that it works well, the redhead woman with short hair. The camera pushes in on a close-up of the redhead woman with short hair. The man with gray hair is typing at the console. They are inside a starship interior. Okay, now on this one, you see how the focus kind of shifts? Think about it like the nature of how we wrote it. It goes and tries to zoom in on her, but then the last thing we talk about though is him typing. So it does move away from him, but it ends up on the fingers. So if you take that part away, gotta wait for myself there. Let's say he pushes into a close-up of the redhead woman. Let's see what we got. So you see now, there's an exceptional amount of focus on her instead of him. Of course, they're getting very close. I didn't know if I was expecting them to get that close, but you get the idea. It also has this issue of the side. I'm pretty sure this issue you see here is because of these things trying to counter that morphing issue, and that's why you're seeing like this byproduct of this. So getting rid of that, something I'm gonna have to work on myself, while still maintaining this kind of like consistency and being able to not have so much morphing happen. But as far as the camera move is concerned, it's following our prompts pretty well. The key is what I have observed from using this is being very concise with the movement as a statement. The camera pushes into a close-up. The redhead woman with short hair of. I could have put of. That one, that doesn't really matter. But the camera pushes into a close-up of the redhead woman with short hair. Period. Then another statement that just describes the area or some other action. But you see when I took off that last action of typing, now the thing that it ends off with is the redhead woman. Like it's really like moving in closer to her. So what this really is illustrating to me that I've seen over and over again, it progressively goes through from beginning to end as this, and this, and this. And usually when I want to separate something else and add another motion in, I say and then blah, 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 right? But of course we only have a few seconds of time, so we can't do every movement, every camera movement, you know, throughout the thing. So let's just talk about other movement. Let's do pulling out versus pushing in. So I want you to consider the idea of what happens when you write it this way. There are two figures, colon, one male with gray hair, one female redhead sitting at a console in a starship the camera pulls out. How this is going to be interpreted very differently. Now let's see our result. Well, as you can see, without specifying, which is the important part, not only does it not really seem to pull out, it also doesn't give you an idea of what the final result is going to be. You should make it a point to always say what you're going to pull out to. And you notice how you see the last thing that it does is whatever it thinks is a pull out move. The camera pulls out to reveal. I think this is a very much a good keyword, reveal. Background showing the interior, even without specifying what this is going to be, of a starship. So one more time. The camera pulls out to reveal the background showing the interior of a starship cockpit. There are two figures, one male with gray hair and one female sitting at a console. Now, the only reason I don't want to say it like this specifically is because it talks about that last thing as if it's the result. And I wanted to talk about it as what you're looking at right now. Then we talk about the result is the camera pulls out to reveal the background showing the interior of a starship cockpit. So I really want to move in this idea of sequentially of what we're trying to do. I think it's even better to say this, and then the camera. So let's go. The results. So see, with this one, you can see it really pulls out. It doesn't make much sense that they're coming from what appears to be outside, but the concept is still there. It pulls out to really show what's around, what's in the area. Be descriptive and then be concise in each movement, and then think consecutively, and you'll see how things will start to work. So let's talk about another type of movement. I want to talk about something really simple, like the ability to something it kind of already did here, but we want to do it in a different way. So let's say we wanted to revolve the camera to show them around, their faces, like straight on. So let's do the camera rotates around the two figures, one male with gray hair and one female redhead sitting at a console in frontal view, and extends to reveal the interior of the starship cockpit that can be seen in the background behind the two figures. Okay, so let's see what we got. You see it rotates around, shows them in frontal view, and you can clearly see the cockpit in the background. So this idea, my concepts of going through, I don't know what's going on, something's glitchy right here. I'll refresh the screen and see what happened right there. But you can see how it's really just learning how to talk through a scene in order of importance and priority, but also in order of what you want to happen sequentially. You don't want to be as all over the place as maybe some things that you might have done when you were doing like SDXL type of iterations for images. Video, you kind of be, especially for this is specifically Wan 2.1, so some other video thing you might be generating might behave differently. But these types of things work well for this type of model. So let's try another type of model. But first, before we do that, let me just refresh this page. I don't know, something kind of wonky just happened for a second. I don't know what that was. All right, so now it looks like it's supposed to look. What's another thing? Oh, you know what? Let's try getting a low angle shot. The same image, and keep trying to see how many ways we can manipulate it. The camera moves to a low angle shot of the two figures at the console, showing the high-tech boots they are wearing and a tiled metal floor. Setting up the shot of the movement, talking about the figures, and then talking about what it's finally supposed to look like in the end. Let's go. Might be a little simple, may need some more details, but let's see what happens. Alright, let's see. Moves a little rapidly. And yeah, a little bit of distortion here. So we probably need a little bit more clarification on how we want it to move from the transition point to the next. It does go to a low angle shot. It does go into the feet on there, but not exactly how we wanted it to happen. The camera moves to a low angle shot following the legs of the man with gray hair at the console to reveal he is wearing high-tech boots with orange lights on them and a tiled metal floor underneath. Now let's see what we got. This is a bit better. that foot twist is really weird. Although it doesn't look like they're sitting down or the feet are sitting down. That might be the harder thing to accomplish, but it follows the leg line a little bit better in this. Maybe a few more iterations, maybe a specific type of thing where we can... The camera moves to a low angle shot following the legs of the man with gray hair at the console to reveal he is wearing high-tech boots with orange lights on them and his legs are bent towards the right hand side of the frame and a tiled metal floor underneath. We'll try that one. But you can see, like, these are basically my concepts for how to like make things flow. Not every iteration is going to be perfect as usual, but there's a lot of different things and approaches you can think about this. So those keywords I think you should be really trying to use for these setups are the most important part. Review a few of the terminology. Push in. Low angle. There's also rotate. Well, let's see from this output. The knees are pointing towards the right hand side of the frame, like I wanted them to do beforehand, right? So that one actually works a whole lot better. So I used to try to say it another way, right? I don't know. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, your right hand, your left hand side of the frame. It seems to be very well aware of that if you're trying to talk about those areas. And then really seems to move in like sequence with the next, whatever the next thing you're talking about, moving through the actual footage itself. Reveal, when it's something that you wanted to show that wasn't originally inside the frame but is now revealed because you changed position. Just make sure that you describe again the before, that it's moving in a certain type of way, and then after that what it's supposed to look like. And when you build up that movement to where it's supposed to look like at the end, be descriptive about everything. So you can see when I wasn't descriptive about the legs and how they were, it didn't move like it does now, which is in a more transitional type of thing where it's still kind of seamless. The other one, it kind of seemed like a jump cut to the where you wanted it to be. I know the other terms work, such as slow motion, and just even saying slowly can help. And you definitely want to keep this in mind, because if you're doing 16 frames a second, right, which is the normal for this, that's not a lot of frames. So if you don't tell it to do things in slow motion and then you try to slow it down later, it's going to look really choppy. You can try to add more frames, but I don't know what your system can handle. And you'll probably do less seconds of footage if you try to do that as well. So using slowly might help in the long run no matter what you're doing, because you can always kind of speed it up and look okay, especially if you have enough frames. But if you're trying to slow it down, you're going to need more frames to be able to make more of a smooth transition. Gonna try to put these two together actually, because I want to like even just show the whole panning thing. So like, yeah, pan 2, right? So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna use that one. Focuses. The camera focuses on the two figures sitting at the electronic console in a starship cockpit, and then slowly pans to the window, showing stars on the right hand side of the frame. Proofreading might be very important for this, especially for me. And a nebula. Let's go with that. That might be a little bit too descriptive, but I'm just gonna go with that. Alright, let's see what we have. And you see it slowly pans over to that window to show the stars, nebula, and everything. So, there's a great amount of consistency and I was going to say expectancy for that. I don't know if that really works here. But you can definitely use these terms if you use everything the right way. Structure your prompts in a specific way. The whole idea is capturing what the moment you want to at first, the movement, the transition between that movement, and how you want it to end off. In that specific order will all help you get results that are consistent across the board. And that's even if you don't use these. If you don't have to use these nodes to make that happen. But again, well, you're gonna have to use this node. But again, these ones kind of help you keep from the morphing thing. You see how it stays a little bit consistent. Has this one little problem. Again, I'm gonna work on trying to figure out how to maybe have some parameters to get rid of this. I mean, technically you could just crop this off, but this is my technique. I hope it works for you guys. I'm gonna run this thing one more time for the sake of just seeing what it looks like without that. But I do sincerely hope that this methodology will work for you guys and you can use it in your own workflows. And as you can see, with the CFGZeroStar and the skip layer guidance off, still does do the pan movement, but you can see the distortion that happens. So that's the reason that you really want to keep it in there. These nodes are still very much a useful aspect of this. Probably gonna need some fine tuning again to figure out how to get rid of that thing on the side. As you can see, without those nodes, you don't get that little part on the side. I really hope all this stuff that I talked about, the methodologies that I explained I hope that I explained them well. And I hope it all works for you in some kind of way. If not, tell me what's not working and maybe we can come to a better conclusion or resolution in the comments below. But nonetheless, thanks for watching.